to be joined again by Nelson Valkenburg. Nelson, you're quickly becoming a fan favorite on this show, not just with Tim and I, but every time you're on, people are like, you got to have him back. He's amazing. So we're thrilled to have you back on. And by the way, I was telling Nelson off the air how much I love the Netherlands. I was there this summer, and what a country, man. It's pretty great. I was in Vagel, which is a small town, and then I went to Amsterdam for a few days and was completely charmed. It was amazing and beautiful. And Nelson, I just feel like you guys know you have it good there. And it's like you come from other parts of the world and you're like, you know what? It can be better than what we have. That's so crazy. Wow.
Well, it's
we
tiny.
were told it couldn't be.
It's tiny, but we pack a bit of a punch. And the town you went to, that's actually the town where the headquarters is of Max's first sponsor, Max Verstappen's first big sponsor. So
Really?
it all ties in together.
What was it? Jumbo?
Jumbo, yes.
Jumbo?
Yeah.
What is that? What do they make? What do they do?
Supermarkets.
Grocery store. Yeah.
Supermarkets, no kidding. Well,
Yeah.
it was interesting. We walked through the airport, and my wife is Dutch, and but doesn't have an EU passport. And the guy at the thing started speaking Dutch to her, and she's like, "Oh, I don't speak Dutch," and. And he's like, with a name like Groen, really? Anyway, so it was a very funny moment. Great place. And we got to talk a little Max Verstappen a little bit later, Nelson. But I want to start with this. I want to get as sensational as possible. I want Tim to roll his eyes and be upset with the question I'm asking. But obviously, after last week's race, Lando and Oscar sort of getting into it. You know, it was bound to happen at some point. It hasn't blown up into a gigantic media storm, although people seem to keep waiting for that. And then, of course, we had the rumors right afterwards that Oscar Piastri is already planning his exit to Ferrari in 2027, already taking Italian lessons, some outlets are saying. I mean, Matt, the name is Italian, right? But I have to say, it seems a little bit fantastical. You know, what do you guys have, Tim and Nelson, on this? I don't think any team plans their driver lineup 2 years out, do they?
Well, some people, I think Zach Brown does a lot of planning ahead of time, but I don't think he planned for two drivers that are basically as quick as the other one. And it's just, you cannot keep going like this. When the stakes are this high, either you make a choice or you see it unravel, and they don't want it. They're afraid of it. But when in the history of the sport has it worked, when you have two equal drivers fighting for the world title? It's not going to work. And I think they've opened a Pandora's box in Monza, and it really came unstuck last race in Singapore because of what they asked Piastri to do in Monza. So I can understand he's a bit pissed off. I would be. I think we all were a little bit in commentary on behalf of him in Monza. I don't know how they reel this back in, because I think, although he's very, very clever, very laid back, he will be pissed off, and he will want to get his own back, Oscar Piastri.
But if Piastri were playing an exit to Ferrari, they have Charles Leclerc, and they have Charles Leclerc for a while. So would he not be leaving one situation where he's a co-equal driver for another situation where he's a co-equal driver? Or is he a better driver than Charles Leclerc?
Well, it depends what happens with Lewis, right? And it also depends what happens with Charles. Will he want to be there in 2027? I mean, what happens if, the Ferrari machine isn't very competitive in 2026, and they know that in front of them it could be a very long time before they are really competitive again, because we're obviously going through another regulation change, and sometimes that takes a while for teams to catch up. And so as a driver, you're going to be navigating the landscape as to who's competitive, who isn't, who has an open door at another team. And at the end of 2026, there's probably about, I want to say 8 or 9 drivers that are going to be out of contract at the end of 2026. And so there's going to be a lot of moving chairs at the end of that as well. So, if you're Mark Webber, you're definitely going down there and kicking the tires, right? Then you're not doing your job if you're not looking around. I think for Oscar, that would be an interesting move. You'd have to wonder where Charles Leclerc would end up. You have to remember, this is, one of Ferrari's prized possessions is Charles Leclerc, right? They spent a lot of money on him. They invested millions of dollars to get him into F1, get him to Alfa Romeo, get him, paying for part of that seat, and then bring him over to the big team. So I think you can't just let a guy like Charles Leclerc walk away from your team. However, I mean, Oscar Piastri is an interesting fit, we'll say. But I kind of, bringing it back to where we are right now and after Singapore, I'm kind of with Nelson on all this is the fact that, as a driver, you'd be pretty pissed off about what has happened over the past two races, like three races.
Do you think, Nelson, you saw, obviously everybody saw the viral clip of Piastri when Zach Brown came up to him after the race, and then he says, "Great job," and then the microphone unplugs. Do you think that was on purpose?
I'm not sure about the onboard radio. I'm pretty sure about the emotions around it.
Okay.
But if I were Piastri, and circling back to the Ferrari thing, I wouldn't necessarily be talking especially to Ferrari. I would look at next year and see what the lay of the land is with the engine. You can assume McLaren will have the best package next year if they have switched focus on next year's car as early as they have. Let's assume the McLaren is the best car. I don't think Piastri is the kind of driver to cut and run. I think he believes he is better than Lando. I also think he has a manager who believes that if everything's stacked against you, you'll have to fight. I think him and Mark Webber would relish beating the team if they feel the team is against them. But
Mark's got experience with that, right?
No
that
kidding.
is very true. Incidentally, Mark was on a plane halfway through the race, so that was maybe a saving grace for McLaren. The interesting part is maybe not Ferrari, but let's assume the Mercedes engine is as good as we all think it's going to be. He is a whole lot cheaper than Max Verstappen for Mercedes. And that is all in the long run, of course. But I think personally, Piastri would prefer not to go, but beat them against the odds. If they feel it's against them at McLaren, I'm not totally sure. I think they've sort of been not unlucky, but they've been a little naive, McLaren, and this whole kumbaya mentality doesn't work. And I've sort of said that they tried to create communism within the team, so it's like a forced equality in a sport that isn't equal, and it will come. It has bitten them now in the ass for sure. And I don't think Piastri will cut and run, but if there's a moment that it's unsustainable, then I don't think it's Ferrari. Assuming the Mercedes engine is better, I think it's Mercedes that they will be talking to.
Wow. That's very interesting.
It's a big assumption, though.
Well,
so we'll see.
Listen, it makes sense with the power unit thing, too, right? You're comfortable with that same thing. People made that sort of connection with Lewis and Mercedes when he left, because I believe Mercedes was the power unit of the McLaren cars that he used to win with, too, right? Like he'd been with that. Am I right on that?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's correct.
Yep.
Yeah.
So,
operationally, it was an easier switch to Mercedes coming from McLaren. Well, maybe that's nowadays less important when you have all the tools that you have at your disposal. But yeah, I really think Piastri is the type of guy who will try to beat the odds first before he cuts and runs.
Got it.
Yeah, because I think even coming into the beginning of this season, Adam, and you and I talked about it, you just had that sense that I think Oscar knew that this could be his season, and in terms with that, this could be his team. Even though Lando is one of McLaren's young drivers who they have, again, same sort of ilk as Charles Leclerc, where they've brought him up through the system, spent a lot of money on him, believed in him, gave him the opportunity, extended his contract, and now they're in a place where they have a car that's capable of winning, not only obviously the Constructors' Championship, but also a driver's title as well. And so when you take a look at Piastri, he's done everything that he's needed to do. He's got himself ready for the start of the season, improved on where all the weaknesses were in the wintertime. He's executed pretty flawlessly so far this season. He hasn't made many mistakes, I would say, aside from Baku. And now he's put himself in a place, obviously, to win his first drivers title. And you take a look at Lando Norris from his perspective. Obviously, he has worked hard, prone to mistakes so far. And I think if you're Piastri as an athlete or a competitor, I think you look at that and understand that is a teammate you can beat. And if you can beat that teammate, then that would make you a number one driver.
Yeah, he has no reason to fear Norris. He has reason to respect him.
Yes,
that's a different matter. But it's not like with Daniel Ricciardo when Max Verstappen came in at Red Bull and thought, "Well, this isn't going to work out for me in the long term." So I agree with him. I think Norris, although I think his second half of the season has been really good from Lando Norris.
Yep.
I think Piastri backs himself, and the big question is, with, for instance, the front suspension upgrade we saw in Montreal, and the Papaya Rule team orders that we've seen, is there going to be a breaking point where Piastri then says, well, that first corner is going to be mine, whatever happens? And that's the big question. What does McLaren do then?
That suspension upgrade that you mentioned, Nelson, that's an interesting small little detail in a bigger sort of behind the scenes look at it from again an athlete's perspective, where that was a suspension that was, I don't want to say it was specifically designed for Lando, but it kind of was, when he wasn't getting the feeling from the front end of the car for the first part of the season, and McLaren had retooled a lot of that front suspension to give to Lando to get him to have a better feeling for what the front of the car was doing. And so when I talked to Oscar about this at the British Grand Prix, I had asked him, like, hey, did you take that front suspension back in Canada? And then it got revised again, because it wasn't just one particular set of suspension that they gave to him. They actually revised that suspension once more for Lando again. And I'd asked him, did you take either one of those iterations? And he said, no. I said, you felt like you never really needed it? Or he's like, the car was giving me everything I needed. I didn't need anything else than that. He's like, maybe I'll try it. But at the time, he was just saying he wasn't really interested in doing it because he was able to get everything he could from the car when he needed to.
So the main question there is, and McLaren has been cagey about this, has McLaren put any resources, any effort, any money in to deal with an issue that Oscar had and Lando didn't have? Because if they did, that's fine.
That's a great point.
If they didn't, if I were Mark Webber, I'd be definitely not happy, because then you're putting in scarce resource. Everybody knows resource will have to go to 2026 very soon. So why put in something that specifically helps one of the two drivers, when in Montreal, it was pretty clear it was going to be one of those two, most likely, that was going to get the title. So why do it? Why create that narrative? And this is what I mean with McLaren. They've not been stupid, but they've been clumsy, I think, by trying to force this narrative of equality. Oh, maybe Lando has an issue with the car, so we'll try to get it to a point where he can compete with Oscar. It's just a bad look. If they mean it or not, it doesn't matter. It's the perception is just wrong.
Well, so, okay. What is it going to take, gentlemen, for McLaren to change course here and back a driver?
This year, nothing. No. Absolutely nothing.
Nothing can change it.
Well, if they crash 3 times in a row and Verstappen is completely back in the fight, they will have to. But in the bigger scheme, Andrea Stella, team principal, he told me, my main aim is to have this team stick together and not damage it for the long term by going all out this year. So what they want is stability for the next few years. And what I'm saying is it's impossible with 2 drivers that want the same thing and are just as fast as the other. Yep. So unless there's real jeopardy from Verstappen, I don't see them making a choice, because they've gone down this road. And these 2 imagine with Prost and Senna, they would have made a choice. What would have happened to that team? It would have fallen apart.
Yeah.
One of the 2 would have left. And it happened because you can't keep that going. And that's why I think ultimately they're on a road to nowhere. But for this year, I don't believe they'll make a choice. What do you think, Tim?
Yeah, to give you like a bit of an example, I mean, if you don't want Nelson put it well in terms of inside the team itself, and you don't want it fracturing, right? You don't want there to be disharmony within your own team. And that's not speaking of just the two drivers, because people will just assume that it's just the two drivers and then everybody else who works in the team gets along. Well, that's not true, because teams who work on either side of the garage are competitive with each other inside the team as a whole. And sometimes some things happen out on the track, and that can cause dysfunction within your two garages. And you can have a splitting of those two garages. That's Mercedes.
Yeah, with Rosberg and Hamilton, right?
Rosberg and Hamilton. I think, if I'm not mistaken, and Nelson, you can correct me if you remember this a different way, but I think it was for the 2016 season. They had swapped garages.
Yeah.
They had taken Lewis's guys and threw them on Nico's car, and they'd taken Nico's guys and threw them on Lewis's car, so they could stop the fracturing from happening.
You get invested. It is impossible not to be invested. If you're a mechanic strapping in a driver, that bond, and Tim knows this way better than most people, the bond between a driver and a mechanic, not even the engineer, but the mechanic that straps you in, that's almost like a brotherhood, because he's the last guy to make sure you're safe.
Yes.
And that carries over into everybody in that garage. And they want their guy to win. It's their member of the family. And now that they've got the constructors, their bonuses are safe. That's all fine. That's not it. Now it's about my guy winning. And for them to keep the team together is going to be interesting. As long as they have the best car, people will want to stay there anyway. But look at Red Bull, how quickly it disintegrated. Within half a season, that team bled to death almost. Because once you lose it, you really quickly lose it. And I think McLaren is at risk of this super team, which is maybe one of the best we've ever seen in terms of talent working together. They could quickly unravel if they don't get this right.
Right. Okay.
I mean, I think everything, Adam, that they've done in terms of like the Papaya rules and all that, McLaren racing rules, whatever. I mean, it was coming from a good place where they were implementing it, right? Like,
and they were two relatively young drivers too, right? Like they were not. Sure. Piastri was a rookie. Lando was a few years in, but young guys.
But they knew that like they had two great drivers who were going to go head to head. There were going to be scuffles. There were going to be things that were going to happen, especially when you have two very talented drivers going against each other. And so, trying to create some, gentlemanly type racing or whatever they were trying to do, it was coming from a good place.
Yep.
However, you can't control these guys when they're out on the track. Like, you cannot control that urge from a driver to send one down the inside at the Singapore Grand Prix into turn 3. Like, you cannot control that. You can't. And there's going to be contact. And so trying to find ways of controlling that is, I don't want to say it's useless, but it's very difficult. And I think I'm going to go back to my Total Wolf and Mercedes, where I said it last podcast, where he slapped that contract down on the table. You guys crash into each other, you pay for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you cannot control or set right things that happen in racing. Bad pit stops, engines failing, whatever. It is not your job as a team to right wrongs for one of the two drivers. You do the best job you can for them, and then fate and their talent will decide it. And right now, it feels like they're trying to over-engineer a situation. What do they want? That it comes down to the wire in Abu Dhabi with a tenth of a second on the straight? Is that the narrative they want? It just feels contrived right now. And it might hurt them if Verstappen keeps going and they go off together. If this relationship disintegrates between the two of them, it could be fun.
I told you, Adam.
I don't know if I like that. I don't know if that's the kind of fun I want. I'm a McLaren fan. I liked them when they were bad, okay?
I told you the last podcast, Adam. I told you the last podcast. Nelson literally just said what I said.
Oh, I don't like this, guys. I don't like this at all. Okay, all right.
But coming back, sorry, final point.
No, please,
Nelson, I
go.
think Piastri has surprised McLaren with how quickly he solved his own issues, qualifying, race pace. Every time he detects a weakness, he just goes about and improves it. And his mentality is a superpower. his work ethic apparently is as well. I've seen him in the paddock at 11 on a European race schedules. Like, what are you doing here? Well, I was 2 tenths off in free practice. And I think McLaren has been caught off guard this year by the fact that they've got equality between the drivers in terms of pace. And that is something they didn't expect. That's what I think.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Oh, God, guys. I just... I don't want to hear that a super team might unravel. Like, listen, Nelson, you have to understand, most of the teams I cheer for in any other sport lose at the biggest moments. So McLaren's the only team I cheer for currently that even has a shot at a championship, let alone 2 in the same season. I just don't want to see them screw it up. Now,
so were you a fan of Tim when he raced then?
Yeah. I did not know Tim back then, but I will always be a fan of Tim Hauraney racing. And if you Google old Tim Hauraney pictures online, he's like, there he is.
Yeah,
there
you
he
got
is.
the name right. Look at that.
I've seen it in the background.
It's not a good sign when it says your name and racing behind it. Eh? That means that you're paying it for
came
itself?
Up with it, dude. It wasn't my idea.
Yeah, it's just like a Frank Williams, right? Frank Williams, Tim Hauraney, same breath, right? Okay, so let's move on to the next conversation. Speaking of Williams, Christian Horner.
Segue. Nice segue.
Listen, I can't add much to the
Christian
show.
Horner racing soon, buddy.
Yeah. Well, that's just going to say I can't add much to the show, Nelson, other than a smooth transition and maybe salacious topics to get us started, like Piastri to Ferrari. But with Horner, obviously there's been rumors about Alpine. There's been rumors about Haas. There's been, because we know he approached Haas and said, "You probably want me to work for you." But I read a quote online. It was a source that said, "Well, Williams would never close the door to somebody like that," and I thought that was interesting because I've seen in the last, we've all seen in the last 2-3 years, Williams just completely transform under James Vowles. And I know they haven't had the season they necessarily wanted to have, but I think they are a team, a real sleeper team to come in and break into the top 3, top 4 in the next 2 years. I think they're going to be fantastic. Why add Christian Horner to what's already working?
Or it's just very much Britishness going like being extremely respectful. I can't see, with the way Vowles is running that team and the fact that he had the backing from Dorilton to do what he did, just hard course correct and accept that 2 years of competitiveness may be down the drain. It didn't happen. I think it worked out well for James Vowles, but I do not believe that Dorilton would, and the owners of Williams would jeopardize the course they're on, because I think everybody in that organization sees it the way you see it, Adam, that if that engine next year, and we all keep coming back to next year's regulations, it's difficult to judge, but if it comes good with Mercedes, that team could be in the top 5, top 4 regularly. And I think it's been an iffy season in terms of build quality and some stuff, some growing pains, but they're there. They're in front in the midfield battle, and they've had a sleeper season maybe, but a good season. And I don't think they're going to jeopardize that by getting Christian Horner. I still believe Alpine is the only viable option for Horner if he indeed wants to come back. But I was in the team principal pen in Singapore. We asked the question, and the team principals that were there, including from Aston Martin, they were always like, "No, but he's calling everybody." And it was such a diss. And Andy Cowell said, "No, he's calling everybody. We know what's happening. I'm not surprised about these questions." It just felt so. Well, if I were Christian Horner, I would not be willing to step back into that paddock just yet. But who knows?
Is that them getting their digs in because of all the years of him being kind of a smart ass on TV over and over and over again, and winning, by the way? He won a lot.
I think with Andy Cowell, it's maybe even more personal because he took so many Mercedes engineers for the Red Bull Powertrains project. And I know secondhand this, but I know they've done a big tour of the Red Bull Powertrains facility. And every time they went into a room, Christian Horner apparently, secondhand, said, okay, who did we poach from Mercedes? Raise your hands to the journalists. So there is some animosity there. But Aston Martin, I just cannot see what would Newey do if Horner comes. And I just don't believe Williams is on a course where they need right now to get Christian Horner, because what he adds is what Alpine is missing, is just stability in structuring the team. This is what he's done so well. The last few years have been brutal on Christian Horner, but let's be very clear on what he has achieved. He built a super team.
Yes, he did.
And I think Vowles is doing that in his own way with Williams, so they don't need him in that respect. I don't think a lot of big names would flock to Christian Horner in 2026 per se, compared to where he was in 2017 maybe. But Alpine is in need of true leadership, and that's where he could actually make a difference.
But if he comes back in, and Flavio's obviously there trying to stabilize things, although Flavio is a notoriously unstable force, which I think is sort of funny. He's a hell of a personality, though. I love him. Like, I love hearing his quotes and that sort of thing.
Yeah, but they contradict each other every 5 minutes, the quotes.
That's what's so great.
Yeah.
That's what's great about being in the media for it. It's like, really? Oh, all right. And what will the answer be tomorrow?
Yes.
And so I look at that and I go, okay, but if Christian Horner were to come back, and I have a theory about this, and I want to run it by you after, but I'm telling you guys now because I might forget to ask you. If he came back and it was with Alpine, would Flavio still have a role there, or is he now the team principal? Is he above the team principal? If that's the one that makes the most sense, what would be Christian's role now?
I think if Christian comes in, it comes in as a part or majority owner. And if that happens, then Flavio's done his job for Renault, because I think he's there to maximize what they've got. That's why he got the Mercedes deal, and make that team worth as much as he can. And I think getting it off the hands of the Renault group, maybe even a minority stake, would mean a job well done for Flavio. Then, I mean, he'll probably get a cut, so he can buy another boat or something. Plus, he's a mate of Christian Horner, so it works out.
Yeah, they're friends, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Like, there's no way Christian's ever going to come back in like a team principal role, Adam.
Right.
Like that'll never happen, because if people think of it this way, like you were doing a job at one level for so long, but then you were also doing another job at a higher level for so long. There's no way you would ever come back to another job where you're literally taking a step back or a step down. You always would be taking a step up, especially in Formula One. And so,
I don't think Christian wants to work for someone ever again.
There's no way. He would want full control, so he has control of his future, more so than what he even had at Red Bull, even though he did have a lot of control, but more so even as in like a team owner, right?
Got it. And so what about the 12th team?
Yeah.
What about coming in as a guy who, I know Otmar is out there. Otmar Safnauer is out there
every weekend.
Every weekend. Apparently, he's got a consortium. I don't know how legitimate that is. We've tried to book him on the show. He's given us the thumbs up, and then we haven't been able to get him on. So I don't know. He's been a bit cagey with his interviews. I'm going to be honest about that.
I did an interview with him, and he was open about all of it. Like,
okay,
12th team, what he was trying to do. He just wasn't open about who the backers were, where the money was coming from, who all was involved, where was the idea of having a factory, things of that nature. But he was very open about this on the record with me. Yeah.
Do you guys believe that he's got enough money behind him to actually do it currently?
No.
Okay. No. Look what it took Cadillac.
Yeah,
the commitment to build their own engine, ditching basically their front man.
Guggenheim family.
Yeah, I do not believe the teams, after suffering a defeat in having to admit Cadillac to the paddock, because I think it's a financial defeat for the likes of Williams. They really wanted to make a point and they didn't. Mm-hmm. Why would they put in a 12th team when there's clearly at least one on the market? And potentially two, because I think Gene Haas would be interested in selling off a minority stake. That's really just a hunch. But at this point, he's built a really good team, Gene has, and maybe he could cash in on that.
Yeah.
But Alpine there must be a for sale sign somewhere in Enstone, because what's the point of that team otherwise? And he could come in, and it would be really Christian Horner to just name it Arden. That was his F3000 team.
F3 team. Yeah.
That was a great team. That was the
was.
basis on what where he earned his position into F1. It would be the resurrection of his own project, and that's why I think it's Alpine. And a 12 team, that's 5 years of debating within the F1 community, and then finding the money. Yeah. And Enstone's facilities are not bad; they're there. So if you have a way in, that seems the most logical way of doing it.
Do you think that if he were to come in and do Alpine, I know they've signed a deal with Mercedes for the power unit. How long do you think the Christian and Toto relationship for the power unit would last?
I think Toto might love it. So, but this is the invoice. Please pay me. Yeah, suddenly they're on the same page in meetings. That could be really funny. But yeah, the sands have shifted between those two. So yeah, maybe it would heat up when Alpine under Christian Horner would be competitive, but we'll see.
I think Toto would be worried that Christian comes back in a capacity at the FIA or something, because I have heard him say, I have to watch what I say because you may come back one day working for the FIA.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. It's always seemed like, as much as that rivalry's been heated, it's purely competitive. I'm sure it got personal from time to time, but
I think so.
There seems to be a grudging respect. Is that fair? There's like a little bit of. They can still have a laugh.
Oh, I don't think so. I don't think they'd really have a laugh. What do you think, Tim?
No.
It's like that. Okay, all right.
I do think Christian Horner, but he might not like me saying it, might look at Toto's position at Mercedes as something he would also want, and that's why he wants to be an owner instead of just an employee.
Yeah. Got it. That kind of makes sense.
That's a good point.
Yeah, and it gives him full control, and he's probably ready for that. And, he's probably made enough money to to bring some backers in, but also put his own money up, too, for a team. Be very, very interesting to see. Now, I'm going to slip one in here. I didn't tell you guys about this, but I want to ask about this. Do we have any updates on the George Russell contract and where that stands? Because that's not been talked about nearly enough. George has had a great season, and nobody seems to be worried about this contract because where is he going to go? And yet, I think the more the season goes on, he's starting to get the hammer more than Mercedes. Am I right in that?
I interviewed Toto in Zandvoort, and I asked him point blank, when is it going to be announced? Is it in doubt? Both for Kimi and George. And he said, no, it's done. It'll be announced. That's what he said then. Then silence. Suddenly we hear there's a difference in opinion on length of contract, amount of PR days. Basically, Russell wants security and recognition for the job he's done. And I think Toto keeping his options open, if I read the situation correctly, is a bit of an insult to George Russell. And that's where the problem lies. Okay. At this point, though, they cannot do without each other. They need each other. So it has to be resolved because George is racing all year at an incredible level. So they need him. They can't get Verstappen off Piastri, or even if they can, having Russell there gives the team stability and an incredible performance. And I think they need to reward him at this point.
Okay.
Quick side note. When I was in Zandvoort for the Dutch Grand Prix, Nelson's interview with Toto Wolff that he's talking about there was like, because I could watch it, right? Because I can't watch it here because it's all geo-locked. But my God.
What? I was just being very direct.
It was great. And like the setup for it, the way that like Viaplay set it all up on their Instagram. So for people like to tune in and watch. And Nelson's like interviewing Toto in the pen. And I can't remember what the main conversation,
So what happened was we have two interviewers per pen position because Viaplay has a lot of countries that we represent. And my colleague, Luna Christoffi from Denmark, asked one question. And he was like, only one question? And I said, well, we have a sit down later. And he just looked at me really funny. He said, oh, shit. And then he walked away. But the story gets better. So afterwards, on Friday, I'm there, I'm set up, 2 cameras, we're waiting. He's in a meeting with the board. And this overruns and suddenly gets cancelled. This happens. You don't take it personally. We reschedule for the next day just after qualifying. And he comes out, running out. He was on his way to another meeting to apologize because Toto is like that. He gets what's, on a personal level, what's important. And then the next day, he comes out of qualifying and he's late. And his PA goes, this 15-minute interview, it might need to be cut back to 7 minutes. And he turns around and he goes, no, they waited 24 hours. They're going to get the interview. He didn't know my questions then yet. But, I mean, in that respect, he's quite a stand-up guy. And it was a nice interview. And then I just went as direct as I could because he can handle it. So it was quite nice.
Yes.
It was a good interview, actually. Very good.
Yeah, it was fun. It was fun. And he answered the questions that we needed about Max and everything. And he doesn't shy away from a question. So I like him for that. I respected him for how he gave me the 15 minutes. and it's one of those people that, and there's a lot of these, especially among the team principals, that will not pass you without saying hello and having a good conversation. And he's one of many in the paddock that are like that. But that day was quite interesting, for sure.
Oh, I bet. Now, I have to ask, gentlemen, Carlos Sainz made a comment the other day about that F1 generally on the broadcasts are showing the friends and family and girlfriends of the drivers a little too much. They're going a little hard at it. And, from a broadcast perspective, I mean, you can understand why they do it. Usually, the drivers are good-looking guys. Usually, their partners are good-looking women. Usually, there's like a family element too. Like if you see somebody's parents and they're like, "Come on," or you see Carlos Sainz's cousin, who's the agent, who's just so emotive, right? Like whenever Carlos Sainz wins a race or does well in a race, I want to know what his cousin, the agent, is doing because he's usually more excited than Carlos is. What did you guys think about those comments that Carlos made? And I'm actually surprised they happened because this is kind of always the way F1's been done. Nelson, Tim, what do you think?
Who goes first, Tim?
I think so this isn't the first time there's been comments like this before from drivers, it's fans as well. It's happened before in the past. I can't comment on it too much because when I watch the race, I watched through I do use the TV, but I don't really rely on it 100%. I use the data tracker that as journalists we get access to, so we can see mini sectors, full sector times, type of tires, what's the deg like on the tire, and how are the drivers' lap times from the best to the last are comparable. And so I watch a lot of the race through that as well. So I mainly consume a lot of the race that from the telemetry side of things, so I can see who's doing what and who could make a pass somewhere and things like that. So I didn't really notice it, to be honest with you, but I mean, I'm not surprised that someone has said something because it has happened before in the past.
Yeah, I did notice it because I have to do the commentary from the world feed, and there is, I think, since Monaco, there's this obsession with girlfriends and family members. How often have we seen Siska Norris, Lando's mom, this year? I think she's fed up with the camera at this point. But there is this push to humanize the drivers and give it all more of a family face, and that's probably part of the outreach to a younger audience. I don't mind that at all. What I do mind is missing track action, overtakes, crucial pit stops because we're looking at something else. And those are two sides of the same conversation. I think in part also Carlos Sainz was talking about this. Maybe it's because we have that many races that they are rotating TV directors, but there have been some misses lately and they really need to address that.
I think
All right.
Also, and Nelson, you might be able to correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I believe the camera operators who roam the pit garages,
Mm-hmm.
I believe they have access to cut into live broadcast if they see something that
I
they
don't
think is
know.
interesting.
I don't know. But for instance, 2 races ago, when George Russell overtook Carlos by overcutting him in Baku, we missed that. We missed the Hamilton Alonso thing. There have been some choices made that I think, in hindsight, they wouldn't have made. Is that because we're looking at girlfriends and family members? No. But there's a lot more coming into a broadcast right now. It's not just here's your world feed. There's so much happening. I think they're listening to 8,500 radio messages in a race weekend.
Yeah.
How much work goes into getting that broadcast right? And it's easy to miss something when you've got so many channels coming in.
Yes.
And if you then have maybe a directive or a plan to show more of the family side and the people behind the driver, certainly it can drown out other stuff. And I think they're trying to find the levels there. But honestly, there have been some misses lately.
One of the things that, and quickly, I know we're running out of time, but one of the things that like IndyCar does or has done well in the past is they let's take the biggest event, the Indy 500, just do that. When, the leader is getting close to, either winning or finishing, side by side at the start finish line, they do a good job of doing like a box and box, or they do like a small picture in picture where the bigger picture obviously is the race itself, and then the smaller picture is the family member, the significant other, etc. And there have been some times that actually have been really fascinating to watch, like Will Power's wife when she was crushing her water bottle and biting on it and like getting all nervous, obviously, for Will. And then the other time was Joseph Newgarden's wife as well, when he was going to win his first Indy 500, and how nervous and everything she got. And the good thing about that is that me seeing that, I was able to ask I was able to ask Joseph Newgarden, like, hey, like, what do you think your wife like was going through when you were, winning this thing or almost winning this thing? And he broke down and started crying. And that interview went global. And so if it's not for that, then we don't get, Newgarden's reaction to it. So there's also that as well.
True, but the Grand Prix is one of 24, and the Indy 500 is singular in its importance.
I was just using it as an
No, I'm
example.
not beating you down. I'm not beating you down. I've done enough of that in this broadcast. But the thing is, they will need to find some levels to this and not go overboard. But I'm not against humanizing drivers, because if you see, say, Norris takes the title and you see his father breaking down, that's what you need and want to see. And otherwise, these guys are not robots. These drivers, they give everything, and their family have suffered just as much as they have. So it is very good that they're doing it. It's just finding the correct way and levels, and maybe they have to look at IndyCar.
Yeah, it's interesting. That's I thought, I'm like, okay, Carlos, like, enough. Like, the reason I have a different view on this because I'm just a viewer. But to me, seeing the anticipation on their family members' faces or their partners' faces or whatever is just to how the sport's always been. And I think it's so unique, right? Like, when you watch a hockey game, occasionally you will see, they'll go to somebody's parents, or a basketball game or a football game. And I always think those are great moments. Nelson, I don't imagine you're watching baseball anytime soon, but, we just had a 20-year-old or 21-year-old kid come out of nowhere and throw 11 strikeouts.
Incredible.
In a Blue Jays game, in a playoff game.
Third start.
Yeah, third game all time, Nelson.
Time.
And they're showing
so
his family
right
the entire
now.
time. Yeah.
But I watched the Roland Garros final between Sinner and Alcaraz, and you see their respective boxes, family members all the time. But those are sports, and I imagine it's the same with baseball, is where you have interruptions in play.
Do. Yes.
And in F1, there are battles everywhere, and that's what makes it difficult.
Yes. Good point. Hey, good point. Okay, last thing, and Tim, I can go a little bit longer here just because the meeting was delayed, so we're all good. We got to say, we can't have Nelson on the show and not ask about Max Verstappen. and you mentioned it a little bit earlier. If McLaren unravels and Max is in it, what are they going to do? Is Max in it? Is he in it?
No, but he can be in it. And the next 2 races are going to be interesting. Vegas, We don't think McLaren will do particularly well there. Mexico, the Honda always does well there at altitude. If it rains in Brazil, we might end up with going to Qatar with 28 points difference or whatever. It's a huge difference right now. Right now, he's not in it. But if McLaren fumble pit stops, if they go off together, suddenly he is in it. And the funny thing is, he doesn't care. That is why I love it. He only races for days like Baku, like the qualifying there, or Monza, when he knows I've wrung everything out of the car, I've done what I could, and I was the best. I know I was the best driver. And if that leads to a world championship again, really good. I'm very happy. If it doesn't, I'm still happy that I had the majority of days where I felt like I was the best. But that gives him a freedom in the fight that neither Norris nor Piastri has. And that's why I hope he's going to be in it. Because what would Hamilton versus Verstappen have been if a very free Alonso would have been there?
Oh.
That fight. He's just a disturbing force. And that could be funny, unless you're a McLaren fan. It could be also quite historic, because I think, and I know I'm Dutch, I might be a little bit biased, but I think we've looked at the best Verstappen this year from a base level point. He has always delivered. I think Barcelona is the exception where his emotions got the better of him. He may rue that day if he comes a bit short. But as a whole, he has detached himself from the parts he cannot control. The car is not great. The team's not great, blah, blah, blah. I will be great. And I think he's done the best job he's ever done. And he's getting a lot of recognition for it, on top of the recognition for the fact he's just a motorsport nerd and he loves racing, even a GT4 car. So it's been a good year for Verstappen. And if he's in with a shout, he's not going to worry about hitting someone in the first corner. Those two Papaya cars are going to worry when he's in the mirror. Yes. And the big problem is the Red Bull is a better qualifying car than the McLaren. So he will always be in the mix in the opening lap. So it's just a lot to look forward to. Regardless of who takes the title, it's going to be fun.
Oh, yeah. You know, we have COTA coming up, obviously. And I know McLaren, and they had said it on Saturday of the Singapore Grand Prix, they're worried about COTA. They really are. They were worried about Red Bull at COTA as well. So I think that is another.
And it's incredibly smooth now, COTA.
Yes.
Has it been resurfaced again?
It was was it last year or the year before they did a partial resurface of it as well to get rid of some of the bumps? I mean, I think it's always going to be bumpy just where they built it.
Well, a lot of the WEC drivers that drove there, especially with Toyota, I think it's Sebastian Buemi who I'm quoting here, who was surprised how smooth it was this year. That could help Red Bull.
That'll definitely help Red Bull for sure. Yeah. 100%.
Okay, well, listen, I'm first off, I'm excited to see you both on the ground at Circuit of the Americas in a week's time. But Nelson, it is always so fun having you and Tim to bounce things off of. As a fan of the sport, it sure brings a lot more clarity than I would have listening to Ralf Schumacher quotes in German newspapers. Now, so I appreciate you both. And I hope that you guys have a blast in Texas. And hopefully we talk again before the end of the season.
Absolutely. I'll be here.
All right. Thanks again, guys. Appreciate it.